सब आपके चॉइस के ऊपर है, बीच बीच में थोड़ा हिंदी का भी सहयोग करने, कुछ बच्चे हिंदी के भी हो सकते हैं।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। So, very good morning to all our colleagues, our dear students, colleagues at RC Chandigarh, and students, participants from all over the globe. That we can say that we have our students, dispersed throughout the nation and also beyond the nation. So, welcome to this first session of discussion on MDE 411, that is the first course of MA in Distance Education, MADE program. Today we will discuss about the course which is MDE 411. We will not discuss the entire course today, but we will discuss the course in general, and then we will in the subsequent sessions go to details of the each course. Once again, I extend very hearty welcome to students, to our distance learners. Dear learners, as you know, MA in Distance Education program, MADE, is one of the rather I could say oldest program of the university. It was started way back in late 80s, and PGDDE program, and subsequently the program was developed into the master's degree level. The program has been extensively revised twice in between, and now the program is more in tune with the present trends of distance education, the philosophy of distance education, and also how the distance education has come to be as it is presently being in offer. I would like to share with my distance learners, with my learners, that distance education has very different nomenclatures in the beginning. I think some of you are acquainted with the postal education, correspondence education, then distance education, then open and distance education, and now more names are being attached to, like open source education and so forth. So there has been history, there has been steady growth in the distance education. It has passed through different phases, and through these phases, the distance education has accumulated so much from the other forms of education that today one can say without hesitation that open and distance education, or rather we may say the distance education, as being provided by Indira Gandhi National Open University, IGNOU, is comprehensive, complete in almost all respects, and serves the interest of our distance learners of different background, heterogeneity, and their social and educational needs. So the basic idea of the distance education, or rather open and distance education, that is being offered by Indira Gandhi National Open University, is to serve the different segments of the society. That includes the serving population, the students community, those who are partly implied and partly would like to be the students of the different academic programs. Keep considering all these the characteristics of distance learners, which belong to different segments of society, different educational background, different employment status. So there are different requirements for providing education to them. So the open and distance education, or the ODL, that is being offered by the Indira Gandhi National University, tries to its best to serve the interest. That means it includes the components which provide some face-to-face contact with the Counselors, they may not be full-time teachers, but they do discuss the issues of learners, academic issues of learners, and to some extent they also refer the queries to the program coordinators if there are some other administrative issues that the with regard to admissions and other concerns. So I will now come to the course, which is MDE 411, which is first course of MA in distance education. Dear learners, or dear friends, rather, I would now welcome my students as friends. So the first course of the MADE program, which is MDE 411, it has been revised 2 3 years back, and now the course is on offer in a revised form. The course is nomenclatured as Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education. Uh, I think we are aware that there are different philosophies of distance education. There has been like industrial education, then certain other nomenclatures were also attached to distance education. So passing through all these different phases of education, the present structure of ODL, open and distance learning, consists of the characteristics of distance education, the open mode, the especially the online characteristics have also been included in the ODL form, which is now on offer by the Indira Gandhi National Open University. So if we talk about the course MDE 411, it is divided into 5 blocks. I would like to clarify to our students, to our learners, that Indira Gandhi National Open University has a 3-tier systems, or 3-tier support system or operational mechanism. One is our headquarters, which is based in Delhi. Then we have our regional centers. Those are based in different regions of the country. And then we also have the study centers or learner support centers. But due to some reason, some learner support centers are now working from the regional center itself. So learner support centers as well as regional centers are providing the services that are required by the students. I'm talking about all these structures is because when we talk about the study pattern of Indira Gandhi National Open University, our learners perhaps are aware if they have gone through their study material, they have found the study material slightly different from the textbooks or the study material that is offered by other institutions, other Directorate of Educations, DDEs or CCEs. The study material or the self-learning material SLM that is provided in both the ways, in print form, in hard form, in printed copies form, as well as it is available online. So it is up to the learners to choose the mode, whether the learner wants the study material in printed mode or this learner have chosen to take advantage of the study material that is available online. I mentioned this small background in keeping in view with the structure of the study material that is provided to the learners. Dear learners, as you might have, if you have seen the study material, you have gone through it, and then you might have found that it is slightly different nomenclature. So we have program, that is Master in Arts and Distance Education. MADE is a program. Then the program is divided into different courses. So as usually we call the name of the program in other institutions, in other mode, it is like in Bachelor of Arts, and then we call the papers under that Bachelor of Arts program. But in IGNOU, we have the program, which is Masters in Arts and Distance Education. Then within the program, we have different courses. Those are more or less like the papers, but the nomenclature is courses. So the MDE course, which is the very first course of Masters in Arts and Distance Education, MADE program of Indira Gandhi National Open University. The program is MADE, the course MDE 411, which is the title of the course is Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education. The course is divided into, then if we say, for example, if we have 5 courses or 6 courses, or if we have 4 courses or project work with it, so all those are courses. Within the course, the course is divided into different blocks. So the blocks are slightly nomenclatured differently, and then each block will have a certain number of units. So if it is a 4 credits course, usually we have 14 to 16 credits, but if the course is 6 credits or 8 credits, the number of units might be from 18 to 22 or 24 units. So that would mean that we have a program, then within the program there are courses, then within the courses or within one particular course there will be blocks. I mean, one course is divided into different blocks, and within the blocks there will be a certain number of units. So you can imagine the system or the structure of the course is quite extensive. That would mean that the learners have to, systematically approach the course. So sometimes in the early 90s or early 20s, 2000 up to 10, we used to have a special session for acquainting the learners with our course material. So for example, like how to open the study material packet and go through it initially. But since now our learners are more aware now, they know the more or less the structure of the program and also the hierarchy of the courses, how do they proceed, and what the course would contain, and what a course within the course, the blocks would contain, and then within the blocks there will be units, and all those units will be having the different titles. I mean, those different units will be discussing different aspects of a particular block, and the blocks will be discussing the course in its holistically. So if we talk about MDE 411, which is a growth and philosophy of distance education, it has 5 blocks, and the first block is basic issues of open and distance education. Block 2 is the philosophical foundations. Block 3 is the growth and present state. Block 4 is the distance education in South Africa, and the block 5 is growth and innovations. It is very important that we take we put the perspective of distance education not only in the national perspective but in global perspective. I would like to share with our learners that the study material that is provided by Indira Gandhi National Open University is offered by many universities across the globe, and it is being offered now for a very long time, and the serving teachers in distance education as well as in conventional education, besides the large body of students who may not be in the teaching profession, they may be working in different other areas, or they may be simply students So they have been benefiting from this. So considering all these aspects of the distance learners across the globe, the course or the program has been designed so that it serves not only the needs of learners or the issues that are there with the education within the country but outside the country. That is how the block number 4, which is distance education in South Africa, this has been very particularly designed to discuss the issues that are facing the distance education has issues in the African continent. So today we will discuss the basic issues of open and distance education, and we will try to go through the what is the basic idea of distance education, how it was initially understood, or how what was the state of distance education in the country when we gained freedom, and what was the form of education that was provided through distance mode, how what was the mechanism, and what was the basic objective of providing education through the earliest mode. So we will go through the block 1, and then we will see what are the basic issues that are there with the distance education in the earlier stage. So we all know that distance education in the country has passed through a lot of changes. Initially, we just a moment, please.
सभी विद्यार्थी अभी वेट करेंगे, डॉक्टर साहब दोबारा ज्वाइन करेंगे।
I'm sorry, there was some breakdown here. I'm in Shimla these days, so we had slight weather issues last night. So there was a signal failure. So we will come back again to the structure of the uh, MDE 411 course, which is the very first course of the MADE program. The title, as I mentioned, is the basic issues of open and distance education. We, as I discussed with you earlier, that the uh, the basic purpose of the course that is MDE 411 is to acquaint our learners with the issues why we need actually distance education in our country. So the very first idea was to discuss that with the conventional education, whether we need another form of education, and if we do need another form of education, what should be its objectives, and whether there is actually a need of other mode of education than the conventional one or not. Because right after the independence of the country, it was felt that most of our learners, not if we don't consider most, but a large body of our learners were not able to get access to the higher education. There were certain reasons, educational, economical, social, and many other factors were impacting the education of our young population as well as the working population. In fact, initially it was felt that a large number of working population would like to benefit from the education, but with the limited availability of higher education and at the same time the working requirement wouldn't permit all those who were aspiring to gain higher education. So, considering all these issues, the distance education came into being, and initially the distance education was provided by the postal mode. The notes were sent to the students, to the learners, and then the reply was received back. So, more or less, it was one-way traffic. But with the availability of distance education through the open and distance mode, it was felt that the learners have varied needs. So the very first unit of the block 1 of MDE 411, which is growth and philosophy of distance education, the first block. The block is based on three units. The first unit is understanding open and distance education. The second unit is social credibility and justice. The third unit is emerging new learner in the globalizing era. The unit one, which discusses the understanding open and distance education, is the unit basically which deals with the basic concept of distance education in the country. The The unit is very important because uh, we have a lot of rather fracture or rather truncated understanding of the distance education when it is nomenclatured with open and distance education. A lot of questions are raised. What is why it is how it is different from the correspondence education, or how it is different from the postal education, and how distance education is different, or rather is more comprehensive when it is provided with the open and distance education mode. So all these issues, whether it is different from the postal education, that was the earliest mode of distance mode of education, or rather it is correspondence education, or it is just distance education. So why do we use different nomenclatures, different names to describe the distance education? And now we are using the term ODL, open and distance education, or open and distance learning. So the education which is the learning which is provided through open and distance learning education is known as ODL, open and distance learning. So the mode is the form is ODL, but the basic concept behind is the open and distance form of education. Good. And the second one is social credibility and justice. This is very important. I think when our learners would attempt the assignments, I will come back to the assignment part in short while. It is very important that the distance education must be socially credible. That means the education that is provided must have social relevance. The social credibility issue is very important, and justice means it should do the justice with the student, not that you enroll the student and then just provide the bunch of books or the study material, but it doesn't really deal with the social status of the learner. So the social status of the learner is important because a lot of our students comes from, they are from heterogeneous background. Their educational issues are there, their social issues are there. Especially if I take one example, like we have girls, and when they get married. After marriage, it is not possible to pursue the higher education in the same manner as perhaps the girls who are yet to be married or not married. So after marriage, there are responsibility of the family, responsibility of the children, and many more responsibilities gets attached to the ladies when they get married. But within their soul, they have a burning desire to receive higher education. So how to get or how to get into a system which deals with the not only deals with the education or the educational issues only, but it also deal with the uh, with the issues that are encircling these aspiring learners. So I'm not using the word students now. I'm using the word learner very consciously because the learners can be of any age. So perhaps our learners know, they're aware that we have the minimum age, that is 18, of getting admission into any of our academic program, and then there is no upper age limit. So at any point of time, at any situation, you can enroll into the program and then pursue the program of your choice. So this is this unit 2 is I must say it is very very important because our students, like if we take a case of the students who are working in certain sectors, say for example in the defense forces, we have a lot of our learners coming from the armed forces and defense. uh, they are placed or posted at borders. They are posted remotely. They are posted centrally, and it is quite possible that at their nearby places there may not be the feasibility of getting into the higher education. So, but when they enroll into our system in the Indira Gandhi National Open University's environment, then our study material, our approach is such that it provides, it facilitates the education to these people who are otherwise not, or perhaps may not be in a position uh, to attend the educational institutions regularly, or may not have a system which addresses their needs. So social credibility or the social relevance of the open and distance education is very important. And Indira Gandhi National Open University has set up an example by including, by providing a mechanism, or by providing a structure of the education which more or less accommodates to learners coming from almost all backgrounds. So when you study the Masters in Arts and Distance Education program, then taking the perspective of open distance education in the country, it is very, very important. So you will, when we will go through the study material, you will find that the open and distance education must have a social relevance, must address the issues of the learners that are encircling them in different situations, whether it is men or women, whether they are working or not working, or whether they are previously adequately educated, or they may not have the education of that particular standard, how to deal with all these backgrounds. Of course, there are admission requirements, the minimum education criteria is there, but we know that the level of education at all the places or with all the learners is not uniform. So there may be issue with the understanding of the course material or the subject matter. So how to help those who may not have very good education at certain point of time, but they want to study further. So the system provides opportunity for those learners also. Uh, Secondly, the second part is very important, which is the social credibility and justice. Justice means that the distance education should serves the purpose. It should not be just a degree or a certificate or a diploma, but it should do justice. That means it should be helpful in becoming a socially relevant human being for the self as well as the society. So that is the basic purpose of education, and if that purpose is served, definitely the education has done the justice, or the system which has provided the education, that is system which we are talking about is open distance education. It has served the purpose. That means it has done the justice with the learner. Uh, if we come to the Unit 3 of Block 1 of MDE 411, then it is emerging new learner in the globalizing era. This is very interesting, and because the study material or the self-learning material has been revised recently, so we know that within the last couple of decades, there has been a change in the landscape of the learning community. Previously, we were used to the learners who were coming just for learning with the one single purpose. But over the time period, the students community has changed, and because of the uh, globalization, the characteristics of the learners have also changed. There has been a lot of mobility. There has been a lot of changes in the students' characteristics. The demands are different, and the needs are different. So that is how the course, the unit 3 of the block 1 has been designed to discuss the emerging new learner. That means the learner which is, I think we have to admit that some of us, or some of you who might have graduated, say, or who might have taken the initial education in early 80s or 90s, or 2000 first decade or second decade, uh, then we know how the learners have changed. So today the learners are more IT savvy. They they are more aware of the learning through the information technology enabled modes. And there was time when the only one mode, that was the self-learning material, or the printed, or rather we can say book mode. So all these issues are making impact, and the learners have to have changed characteristics today. So this unit 3 is basically designed for that purpose, that to discuss with the new characteristics or the new learner in the globalizing era. You know, the learners are moving, they are moving more fast, more frequently. They are learning through the different aids and different gadgets. They are not interested in the printed book. They are working. They are changing professions very quickly. Their family, their lifestyle is changed. So they just want education through the latest mode. So the those such characteristics of the learners have been discussed in the Unit 3, which is emerging new learner in the globalizing era. Now we know the concept of globalization, which is a universal market where all of us have habit of sharing, habit of moving into the borderless globe. Learning is also required to deal with the globalized uh, demands of the market, as well as the working structure. So today we can't just say that our education must address the issues which are only locally or the local based, but we have to manage. They are multinationals. Their working environment is different. We have the global education scenario. So the learner needs to be ready, to be competent enough to work in the international or the globalized environment. Block 2, as I mentioned, maybe we will take the details of the issues, specific issues of the units in a little while, or maybe in the subsequent sessions, maybe tomorrow or day after. So today we will go through the structure of the course, ES MDE 411. As I mentioned, that it has 5 blocks. So the first block was basic issues of open distance education, under which there are 3 units, which is understanding open distance education, social credibility and justice, and the emerging new learner in the globalizing era. Block 2, which is, as we had just a little while ago discussed, it is the philosophical foundations. ब्लॉक 2 जो है ये है कि मुक्त एवं दूर शिक्षा की जो एक उसके आधार क्या है, उसके जो एक उसका दर्शन क्या है, उसकी फिलॉसफी क्या है, किस तरह से डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन क्या है, दूर शिक्षा क्या है, उसको हम कैसे समझ सकते हैं, हाउ टू डिफाइन इट। तो इसमें जो यूनिट 1 है उसमें जो डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन है उसको डिफाइन किया गया है। What is distance education? How do we understand distance education? How does society understand distance education? ब्लॉक 2 का जो यूनिट 2 है दैट इज द फिलोसॉफिकल फाउंडेशन 1। As a basis or as a foundation for any system, there are certain philosophies, there are certain principles, there are certain theories. So, when we define distance education, on what basis we define? जब हम मुक्त या दूर एवं मुक्त शिक्षा की व्याख्या करेंगे तो हम किस आधार पर इसको समझेंगे कि दूर और मुक्त शिक्षा क्या है। there there must be certain bases and certain foundations. So the unit 2 जो है वो उन्हीं डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन की जो कुछ दर्शन है, उसका जो एक फलसफा है, उसके जो कुछ आधार हैं, तो उनके उनके पीछे क्या धारणाएं क्या है, व्हाट आर द फाउंडेशंस, उनके पीछे किस तरह की अवधारणाएं हैं, कंसेप्ट्स क्या है। दिस इज डिस्कस्ड इन द यूनिट 2। Unit 3 that is for the philosophical foundations to continue. So unit 2 or unit 3, these two units of block 2 of MDE 411, which is the philosophy of growth and philosophy of distance education. That block 2 will discuss in the units 2 and 3, the philosophical foundation 1, philosophical foundations 2. So as I mentioned that when we discuss any topic, or if we discuss, if we take the example of the topic that we are discussing right now, which is distance education. So what are the philosophies, what are the concepts, why it is there, how it came to be understood or called distance education, what was the basis, etc. So we'll discuss in the unit 2 and 3. And unit 4 is the emerging operational concerns. This is a little new idea that what are the operational concerns? Operational concerns means how do we provide the education? I think distance education का जो एक स्ट्रक्चर है वो डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस में एक अलग अलग स्ट्रक्चर है. There are a lot of institutions which have the contact classes. There are certain institutions which have periodical interactions. Some institutions have just interaction sessions. These days, these sessions are, as today we are in this session, which is being provided through the online mode. Sometimes some institutions have the face-to-face mode. Sometimes, especially COVID and post-COVID, we have switched over to the online mode. So different institutions are providing different education through different modes. But the operational concerns are slightly indicating to a more serious idea about the distance education. As I mentioned a little while ago, that Indira Gandhi National University provides three-tier support, or it has three tiers for the operational structure. There are certain universities, there are certain institutions, there are directorates, there are certain other courses which have just one place from where the education is offered. And if at all there has to be some contact, some classes, some face-to-face interaction, then the learners have to go to the directorates or to the universities or to the centers where the interaction sessions are held. Different institutions have different operational structure, but what are the concerns? Are the learners being really provided the support for their issues, academic issues? So, more so in the emerging times. If we talk about the distance education or the earlier form of education, which is postal education, correspondence education, distance educations, in the early 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, then 2000 and so forth, we know that there were less concerns. Students were satisfied with the study material that was sent to them. They would study, they would sometimes write assignments or write small attempts that were provided to them by their tutors or mentors, and then send them back and appear in the term and examinations or other annual examinations, and then eventually they will pass and obtain the degree. If you look at the structure of Indira Gandhi National University, it has assignment component as a very major component, which is almost 30% weightage of the course load, and the assignments are both tutor. They used to be tutor marked and the computer marked assignments, but there has been slight changes, and there has been changes in the number of assignments also. Earlier there used to be three assignments per course, four assignments per course, and then two assignments. But now the number of assignments have also come down. I will discuss assignment part slightly later and separately, just focusing in our second part of discussion on the assignments, how to attempt, what is the purpose of the assignment, how much weightage it holds, and what should be the approach of the assignment, and what is the objective of the assignment in a little while. But maybe in the next 5 minutes, we will just discuss the structure of the MDE 411, so that we have some idea that the course 1, which is MDE 411, which is growth and philosophy of distance education, we will have some idea what will be eventually, reading or studying in this particular course. Of course, different courses will have different issues, but within one course, what we will study, so that we will discuss right now, and then we will come back to the other courses and the blocks and the units of those remaining four courses. So as I mentioned that there are five blocks. As I mentioned you also that we should not get confused by the blocks, units, courses. The simple understanding is that the name of the program is MADE, which is as good as like any other BA or MA program of any other university. Then within one program, we have number of courses, which are as good as number of papers. If we want to understand it more simply, and then within one block, there are certain number of units. and then each unit has its own area of discussion, own title. Blogs will blog also have their titles, and under the blogs there are units, and the units have also their own titles. So if we come to block 3, which is growth and present status, this is again a very important study. The growth and present status, as I think I mentioned initially, or I have been all through talking about the postal education, correspondence education, distance learning, open and distance learning, and so forth. So why I'm discussing all this? I'm discussing just I want to keep you, reminded all the time that we have come a long way from the initial form of distance education. So from the block 3 of the MDE 411, which is growth and present status, has 3 units, and all these 3 units are specifically dedicated to historical perspective, the international scene 1, the international scene 2. Historical perspective will discuss the earlier form of education provided through distance mode, and then how it progressed through different stages. But the unit 2 and 3 are very important, and these are important in the sense that the international scenario has seen a lot of changes in the not only the recent past but in the past few decades. And along with the international scenario change, the characteristics of the distance learners have also changed. So unit 2 and 3 will be focused on the international scenario or international scene of the different form of education, and how the education came to be today as offered by the National University, named as open and distance learning. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is what is the present status of the historical perspective. That is one part, but what has the distance education gone through the recent past and where it stands today. Of course, we will be discussing the Indian scenario all through, but it will also be seen vis-a-vis international scenario where distance education, where distance in different countries stands today. What is the status? So this is discussed in the block 3. Block 4 is the distance education in South Africa. This is very important, as I mentioned, that the purpose of this particular block is because our distance education programs are offered around the globe, and more specifically in the African continent. So there are a number of nations in African continent which are offering our postgraduate diploma in distance education, as well as the master's arts in distance education. So it is very important that when we offer the program to our students, our learners in the African continent, we have an understanding of the distance education in Africa, the role that the distance education is fulfilling in the African continent, and at the same time the problems and challenges distance education in Africa. Besides, one very important aspects of the distance education, or rather open distance education, is that why it has come to be. So behind this concept of open distance education, there has been a question, there has been a concern all through the higher education that whether it is accessible. So when we talk about the distance education, the issue of access or accessibility, access and reach is very important. Whether it is reaching or whether the learners have access to it. So the concern has been specifically included and discussed in the African perspective. Quality and cost. Well, this is very important. We know that the quality of education matters a lot. So this unit is there to discuss the quality and cost, and we all know that it is very important that distance education should commensurate with the status of the students community at large. It cannot be it cannot be placed, or it cannot be very costly, because a lot of students are not from very affluent background or communities, so they are not able to afford a high cost of the education. So this part is also discussed, that what should be the rational, or what should be the costing model for the distance education. Because as I mentioned to you, and as in the blog 2, we discussed the accessibility, the issue of education, particularly the social uh, credibility and justice. So if it is very costly and the students community is not able to enroll, what is the justice? What justice will it do if it is not provided at all? But at the same time, its social credibility is closely related to the issue of costing, or issue of the cost model of the distance education. So the unit 4, the block 4 of distance education in South Africa, which is nomenclatured as access, quality, and cost, we'll be discussing these issues. Then the unit 5, this is again very important, and this is the regional issues. So the regional issues are to address the sorry for a small break. The regional issues are to address the concerns of particular countries. Different countries have their own issues. We know that the, the political issues are there, the economical issues are there, geographical issues are there are internal conflicts, there are unrest, and a lot many issues are there. So the unit 5 discusses this. This is very important, because when distance education is provided, if there is unrest, travel restrictions would be there. The students community will not be able to go to the contact classes, will not be able to attend the interaction sessions. And if there are students learning support centers, they may not be able to visit all those centers. If it is political instability, if it is unrest, the government changes very frequently, and not all the successive regimes or the successive governments might not be benevolent or be interested in continuing the or allowing the education to proceed the way it is being provided. So all those issues actually come in the way of providing the distance education. So the Unit 5 will address the issue of regional problems, regional constraints. Regional constraints are not the regional constraints may be within the different regions of a country, but at the same time, the the focus of the unit is the different regions of the African continent, and within the regions, the countries which are falling, what are their issues, what are their economic state, what is the political understanding, or what is the view of the government of the day in these regions or in the countries that are falling the different regions, whether they are allowing the distance education to continue or they have some different ideas. And at times, the education is also used as a weapon. So in certain areas, the community is not allowed to obtain education. So there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of concerns. So to provide a worthwhile education, understanding of these education is very important. So the unit discusses all these issues. Block 5 is growth and innovations. This is again good reading. Good reading in the sense that we discussed in the block 3 growth and present status. So the growth and present status in block 3 is primarily with the perspective of history of distance education, how it was existing in the earlier forms, and what were the changes, what were the journey it passed through, and then in the unit 2 and 3 of block 3, the present status in the international scenario, where are where is the distance education in the different countries. But the block 5 is growth and innovation. That means here what has been added to distance education, how the distance education has unfolded in the different situations in the period over the period time, over the years, how it has changed, how or what it has assimilated from different situations and so forth. So it has 10 units. The block 5 has 10 units. So it is a quite big block. So it is almost half a course, because if you look at the block 1, 2, 3 and 4, we have either 3 units or 4 units. On block 4 we have 5 units. Block 5 has 5 units. So this is a very big reading, very big block, and within the block 5 we will study the guided didactic conversation in distance education. Let me just take you to a little away from this right now the discussion. We were talking about growth. So growth is not only in the size, in the quantum, that we are today providing education to so many thousands of students, or we have so many number of regional centers, or we have so many learners and so forth. But how we have strengthened our learning, whether we have really consolidated our learning, whether we have learned from the experiences of the distance learners, and in the light of the experiences, feedback we received, whether we have modified our approach, whether we have changed our approach, whether we have taken into account the needs, and accordingly we have refurbished our approach, or whether we have revised our study material and included all the concerns and issues that are emerging. So that means we the growth in the sense discussion that is in block 5, it is with regard to the consolidation, the strengthening, the updation, the modification in our approach, both in terms of the understanding of the distance education and conceptually building a framework of the education, as well as improving our self-learning material, or improving our delivery mechanism, and also improving the overall infrastructural support to the learners. So it is on two levels. One is on the soft level, that means what is our approach. Conceptual level, whether we have really grown or we are still conceptually working with the same prototype which we initially came into distance education. What is our approach today? The we we have in unit 3 that we have globalized learner. So what is globalized learner? So the learner may be much more different from the learner of 70s, 80s, and 90s, or first decade of 2000. So today the learners do not have much time to carry a big sack of books and especially dedicated to the study. Today the learner has many other areas to work with. He is short of time. He is more technology savvy and take advantage of his time while traveling, while doing certain other jobs and study. So we have to be conceptually build an approach which give rooms to all these concerns of this. So this is what is discussed in the block 5. So we will go by the unit schema. So this unit 1 is guided didactic conversation in distance education. So there will be the mentor and the counselors and the students enter into the conversation about the distance education. Then the unit 2 is the characteristics of distance education. I have been all through saying one thing to you, dear learners, that the characteristics of the learners have changed today. But at the same time, the characteristics of distance education have also changed. The role that the distance education played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s has changed. The role that it played in 80s, 90s, and 2000 has also changed today. So that means the demand of the distance education, the obligations of distance education, the role of distance education is constantly changing. So this discussion you will find in unit 2. And then unit 3 is distance education in the third world. This is very important because if you look at the distance education in the developed countries, Europe or United States of America, or Australia or New Zealand, or other parts of the world, I think we have to very closely look at the need of the distance education, the role of the distance education in the third world. And we also have to be little careful today in understanding what is third world, because there has been lot of political, lot of geographical, lot of economical changes in the globe. So what are the obligations of the distance education in the third world? So a critical analysis on the promise and reality. Uh, this is very interesting topic, because theoretically we promise a lot, but whether in reality we are able to deliver that. So on certain examples it will be discussed. What is the state of the delivery in real terms? So there will be critical analysis. Then Unit 4, China's higher distance education, its four systems and their structural characteristics at the three levels. As I mentioned, in India, we through being the apex higher open and distance education providing body, a three-tier approach in the system. But the China has a different model, which is called the four systems. So we will discuss, or the topic, the unit will discuss the structural characteristics at the three different levels, its four systems. Unit 5 is open and distance education as social practice. We have discussed initially that the social relevance. So when we talk about the social relevance or the social credibility, obviously the social practices of the distance education, open and distance education, have also to be discussed. So I will give you a small background with what is social practice. Excuse me. Uh, we know that the practices of providing distance education in different countries. The practices which are there in the operation are different in different countries. In certain countries, we have the group learning system, but in certain other areas, we have the students coming to the centers, to the study centers or the contact learning centers. So the unit number 6, the 5 will discuss the open and distance education as social practice. Unit 6 is the distance education in developing countries. So we in the unit 4, unit 3, 4, and unit 5, we were mainly focused on the third world countries, and then the China's higher education, distance education, and its four systems. And in unit 5, it was open distance education as social practice. That was for the all the regions. But in unit 6 specifically, the focus is on the developing countries. So In the developing countries, the scenario is slightly different from the third world countries or from the developed countries, that is the Europe and America and other developed countries. So the prospects and challenges. So the unit will discuss what are the challenges, what are the prospects, what do we want from the distance education, and what is hampering the distance education, and how to overcome those challenges or the impediments. Now we are entering into the unit 7. The unit 7 is it's very interestingly structured or focused on the mega universities. We know that certain universities are enrolling uh, millions of students, 1 million, 2 million, 3 millions. Take a case study of Indira Gandhi National Open University. So 3 millions plus students are there. China's Central University, Open Distance Learning Central University. Then there are virtual universities. And then we also know the new term which is coming, the knowledge media. What is the knowledge media? So we will take a look into the concept of mega universities, the virtual universities, and the knowledge media. So there are efforts in India also to set up virtual university, which in the near future would become a reality. So we'll study, we'll see how the virtual university will actually work, and virtual universities which are working elsewhere, how do they respond to the students, their role, their strategies, their objectives, and what they are actually able to deliver. So can we have quality and quantity? This is the concern. This relates to the mega universities are having a mega population of these students. So there is always a question whether the mega setup is able to deliver. Definitely it must be delivering, or it is delivering, but whether it is also offering a quality delivery or quality with quantity. Quantity is there, that is how it is mega university, but whether it is able to deliver with quality. Similarly, virtual universities, how do they do the quantity, how many, or how much big body of the students is there with these universities, and how do they maintain the quality? The same is the knowledge media is becoming very powerful. There has been structural change in the knowledge media. Today it's forming a very strong base, as well as it has been recognized as a very important factor in the overall education scenario. So we'll discuss it. Then Unit 8 is developing improved strategies towards better student support services. We know that learner support services or student support services are very important factor of the open and distance education system. Without substantive or the rationally structured or designed student support services, it is not possible to serve our students properly, because we know that our students are heterogeneous, comes from different backgrounds, different uh, areas, different professions. They have their own constraints. So if we do not provide them adequate as well as rationally judicious support services, it is not possible to serve them ideally or objectively. So the Unit 8 will focus on developing improved strategies. So we have to plan. I remember the documents of the universities, number of universities, and then they ask for the teaching community to devise strategies for the improvement of the support services to the students. Similarly, uh, the issue of discipline is also one very important factor which is becoming more relevant now. Can we uh, can we have a mechanism whereby we can inculcate the same sense of discipline in the distance learning community or distance education uh, as it is in the conventional system, or at the same time having a same sense of discipline in the entire educational system of the distance education which is there in the conventional system, or may be slightly differently perceived for the distance education. So this issue is also becoming very important because at certain times the institutions behaves which is not in the interest of the students community, and certain level the students community also behaves in a manner which is not becoming of the students community. So there has always been a conflict uh, within the institutions that is providing distance education as well as the community of students. So the problem is always there. So this is very important unit which will assess uh, that how to create a discipline in the uh, discipline of distance education, that the educational system itself is more oriented towards the real objective of education, providing an education which is in a sense serving the purpose of the students community, at the same time also building an ideal distance learning education. So is distance education a discipline? So the unit 9 and 10 both will issue uh, whether the issue of discipline is how it is perceived as a problem, or whether the distance education uh, is a, this is very important because uh, when we talk about all these issues, the overall discussion takes into another area of study. So when we talk about the area of study, then that area of study uh, takes a shape of discussion or shape of the area of study, just like science, humanities. So the distance education, the issues, the magnum of the study of the distance education focuses on a need that this should not be studied in isolation. This should not be studied in a scattered form, but it should be studied in a consolidated form. And if we study it in a consolidated form, obviously it is becoming an area of study, and when it is an area of study, it is a discipline. So under a discipline, you can discuss the problems of the distance education, you can discuss the problems of the distance learners, you can study the spread of the distance education, the constraints of distance education. So speaking summarily, the distance education today is becoming a discipline, and under this discipline, different facets, different aspects of the study will focus on the distance education, its quality, its concerns, its objectives, its expansion, its geographical operations, its economy, its role, its perspective, and so forth. So, block 5 is very important in a sense that ultimately it ends into an idea that distance education is not a scattered area of study, but it is an area of study, a complete area of study. Hence, it should be uh, taken as a discipline, because under a discipline we can understand the subject as in comprehensive sense, and all the aspects, whether it is operational, whether it is objectives, whether the subject matter of the uh, subject itself, then it becomes a discipline. So it will be like any other discipline. Whether it is like any other discipline, we will study in this particular unit, which is unit 10, unit 9 and 10. Unit 9 is more of whether we should understand the distance education as a discipline or not, and the unit 10 is a focused study that whether the time has come that the distance education should also be nomenclatured as a discipline. So I think we have a long discussion on the structure of the MDE 411, which is the first block of MA in distance education. So the first block is growth and discipline of growth and philosophy of distance education, under which we focused on the 5 blocks and the units which are discussing the different topics. The first unit was basic issues of open and distance education, then philosophical foundations, then growth and present status, then distance education in South Africa, and finally the block 5, which was growth and innovations. So dear learners, this is the structure of the MDE 411. So this is the first block of the first course of the MA in distance education. Similarly, we will have 4 more courses, so we'll discuss about them later. So today we just have discussed and got an idea what we are going to study in these in the first course, which is MDE 411, Growth and Philosophy of Distance Education. So we have to remember that along with the material or the contents, you will also be asked to attempt the assignments. So the assignment part is 30% of the weightage, and the assignment part is basically the continued to monitor the understanding of the learners of this subject matter of the course which is provided there in the form of self-learning material. So you will be given a questionnaire that perhaps you might have received already from the university. So you have to attempt that. And the idea of assignment is to just monitor whether you are progressing with the understanding of the particular topic, its basic concepts, and whether you have actually studied the whole course, because sometimes what our learners think that just studying 1 or 2 blocks we will attempt the assignments, but that doesn't happen. And the assignments are so designed, so prepared, that they have a question order which deals with the entire course. So it is very important that you study the entire course. Don't leave any unit or any block unattended, or do not please ignore it. So only then you can attempt the assignment properly. And I think you must remember that attempting assignment is almost your half preparation for the term and examination. So you are, while you are earning 30% of the weightage from the attempt of the assignment, it is also an opportunity to evaluate yourself, because the assignments will be evaluated and the feedback will be provided to you. So the feedback will help you to gauge, to to know whether you are in the right track of understanding and acquainting yourself with the study material, or whether there is any change that is needed to incorporate in your approach towards the study, towards your understanding of the uh, course material or the contents of a particular course. So the assignment is a ongoing activity while you are studying. At a certain time schedule, you have to attempt your assignment and then submit it to the study center or send it to your course coordinator or whatever designated place that you are advised to, where you submitting your assignment. It will be evaluated and then the feedback will be provided to you. So the feedback will ensure that you get an idea of your approach, your progress, how you are approaching. So I think we have had a long discussion. Uh, Before we take this another round of 10 to 15 minutes of review of the today's discussion, I would like to invite our learners. If they have any question, they are welcome. Any of our learners have questions? तेजपाल जी, are you there?
जी डॉक्टर साहब,
हाँ, कुछ इंटरेक्शन चाहते हैं?
विद्यार्थीगण अगर आपके मन में कोई संदेह है, प्रश्न है, तो आप पूछ सकें डॉक्टर साहब से, या फिर आपने जितना आपने स्टडी किया है उसको आप नोट कर लें, फिर बाद में कोई प्रश्न हो तो नेक्स्ट सेशन में भी आप पूछ सकते हैं। अगर अभी किसी की जिज्ञासा है तो अपना प्रश्न रख सकते हैं। अनुश्री, डॉक्टर कृष्ण दास, श्रुति, आरती, रुमालदा, तन्मय, चलिए कोई बात नहीं। आप लोग अगर चाहें तो अपना वीडियो ऑन कर सकते हैं। मैं आपका एक स्क्रीनशॉट ले लेता हूँ आज का।
तेजपाल जी, मैं 1 मिनट ले लूँ?
जी 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 आदरणीय, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
तो मैं अपने सभी जो हमारे शिक्षार्थीगण हैं, मैं उनसे, लर्नर्स हैं, उनसे ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि आज का जो हमारा सेशन था, ये सिर्फ एक तरह से जो MA डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन जो आपका प्रोग्राम है, उसका एक तरह से ब्रॉड आइडिया लेने का एक सेशन था, क्योंकि हमारा पहला सेशन है। तो इसमें अभी हमने जो कोर्स में जो कंटेंट्स हैं डिफरेंट यूनिट्स में, अभी उसको ज़्यादा टच नहीं किया है। तो वो इसलिए टच नहीं किया है कि जो पहला जो इनिशियल लेवल पे ये शायद ज़रूरी है कि हम थोड़ा सा एक अपने जो प्रोग्राम है उसका एक खाका अपने मन में बना पाएँ, एक उसका आउटलाइन हम तैयार कर पाएँ। And secondly, today we focused on the course 1, which is MDE 411. तो मेरा ये आइडिया था कि आज हम केवल इसके पूरे स्ट्रक्चर का आइडिया ले लें कि इसमें हम क्या पढ़ेंगे। तो मुझे लगता है कि आपको थोड़ा सा इतना तो आभास हो गया होगा कि जो ग्रोथ एंड फिलॉसफी ऑफ डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन है, इसमें 2 चीज़ें बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट हैं कि डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन और ओपन एंड डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन का कंसेप्ट क्या है, इसकी संकल्पना क्या है, हम उसके बारे में क्या सोचते हैं और ये कैसे कंसीव की गई थी। दूसरा ये है कि जब हम किसी चीज़ को कंसीव करते हैं तो उसका एक थ्योरेटिकल या फिलोसॉफिकल बेस होता है, क्योंकि आपने भी देखा होगा कि अगर हम किसी भी विषय की बात करें, फिजिक्स के जो प्रिंसिपल्स हैं उनकी बात करें, ट्रांसलेशन स्टडीज़ की बात करें, तो देयर आर सर्टेन थियरीज, देयर आर सर्टेन फिलॉसफीज। तो उनके आधार पर ही हम एक किसी विषय को बिल्ड करते हैं। तो डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन का भी ऐसा ही है। और ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट आज की इस डिस्कशन फोरम में जो ये चाह रहा था, क्योंकि ये जो ग्रोथ और फिलॉसफी का डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन का ये यूनिट कोर्स है MDE 411, तो इसमें जो ग्रोथ है वो ग्रोथ क्या है? ग्रोथ तो विकास है, लेकिन जो विकास है उसकी जो बढ़ोतरी है उसके बहुत सारे आयाम, डायमेंशंस होते हैं। तो और ख़ास तौर पे इसको इंडियन और वेस्टर्न पर्सपेक्टिव्स, और ख़ास तौर पे वेस्टर्न और एशियन पर्सपेक्टिव्स और अफ्रीकन कॉन्टिनेंट्स में ये स्टडी पर फोकस्ड है ये जो कोर्स है। तो उसके जो अलग अलग इश्यूज हैं उनको भी शामिल किया गया, और ख़ास तौर पे अफ्रीका या अफ्रीकन जो कॉन्टिनेंट है उस पर ज़्यादा ध्यान दिया गया है। और बड़ी बात इसमें तेजपाल जी, इसमें इम्पॉर्टेंट है, जो बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण है, जो डिस्कशन में आएगी और आप जब इसको डिटेल में पढ़ेंगे, तो जो ग्रोथ और इनोवेशन, इसमें नई चीज़ें क्या जोड़ी गई हैं कि आज ये एक डिसिप्लिन, एक अनुशासन, एक अध्ययन के विषय के तौर पर हमारे सामने आ रहा है। और डिसिप्लिन के तौर पे जब हम बात करते हैं तो इसमें स्टूडेंट्स कम्युनिटी की जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, उनका जो अनरेस्ट है, उसको कैसे हैंडल करें, उनके जो इंटरेस्ट हैं उनको हम कैसे सर्व करें, उनके फ्यूचर को कैसे इंश्योर करें, टीचर्स कम्युनिटी के क्या कन्फ्लिक्ट हैं स्टूडेंट्स के साथ। तो जब हम किसी विषय की एक होलिस्टिक या एक समग्र अध्ययन की रूपरेखा बनाते हैं, तो वो जो विषय है फिर वो विषय नहीं रह जाता, फिर वो डिसिप्लिन हो जाता है, अनुशासन हो जाता है, एक प्रकार के अध्ययन का विषय बन जाता है। तो ये सारी चीज़ें आज हमने डिस्कस की, और आज जो हमने डिस्कस किया उसमें हमने ज़्यादा कंटेंट्स को, एक तरह से जो रिटन कंटेंट है उसको टच ना करते हुए, जो पूरे कोर्स की फिलॉसफी है उस पर बात की है। तो अब मेरा एक थोड़ा सा निवेदन भी है, जैसा मैंने अभी असाइनमेंट्स के बारे में आपसे जिक्र किया, कि आपको 3 चीज़ें इसमें बड़ी इम्पॉर्टेंट हैं। एक तो टर्म एंड एग्जामिनेशन, इसका आपका होगा जो 70% वेटेज का होगा। आपका जो है 30% वेटेज के असाइनमेंट्स होंगे। तो असाइनमेंट्स मैंडेटरी हैं, उसके बिना जो है ये 2 कंपोनेंट हैं, थियरी और एक तरह से आपका टर्म एंड एग्जामिनेशन और असाइनमेंट्स। तो दोनों में ही आपको जो है वो पास होना ज़रूरी है। जो रिक्वायर्ड पास परसेंटेज है वो जो रिस्पेक्टिव कंपोनेंट है, that is the assignment component as well as the term and examination component. In both the components you have to individually score a pass score. So please do remember that you cannot ignore either of the components, because in each component you have to individually obtain a pass score. तो आप ये ध्यान रखें कि ये नहीं होगा कि केवल असाइनमेंट्स लिखने से ही पास हो गए, नहीं, या फिर केवल सत्रांत या टर्मिनल एग्जामिनेशन देने से ही you will pass the course. No, that will not happen. So please remember that you have to successfully attempt the assignments and obtain a pass score. At the same time, when the terminal examination is held for the course or for the different courses of the program, you have to successfully pass or clear or obtain the pass score in the terminal examination also. Only then you will be successfully completing the course. तो हम आगे भी अपने जो हमारे सब्सिक्वेंट सेशंस हैं उसमें हम असाइनमेंट्स पे और बात करेंगे, और जो कंटेंट्स उन पे तो हम बात करेंगे ही, और अगले जो हमारे और सेशन है 4-5 सेशन जितने हमारे होंगे, उनमें हम जो हमारे डिफरेंट कोर्सेज हैं उन पे हम बात करेंगे, लेकिन जो MDE 411 है, इसके जो हमारे जितने भी सेशंस होंगे उसमें हम कंटेंट्स पे भी बात करेंगे। आज हमने इस एक जो ब्लॉक 1 से 5 जो MDE 411 के थे, उसकी एक आपको एक तरह से इंट्रोडक्टरी जो जानकारी दी है। अब हम इसके जो कंटेंट्स हैं उन पे हम बात करेंगे। तेजपाल जी।
जी आदरणीय, यदि किसी विद्यार्थी का, शिक्षार्थी का कोई प्रश्न है तो अभी आप पूछ सकते हैं आदरणीय से। नहीं तो फिर हम ये मान के चलते हैं कि जो आपको बताया गया है वो आप लोगों ने अच्छी तरीके से समझ लिया है।
हमारे जो our distance learners would like to put their queries, so it will be welcome because we still have time to discuss.
आरती सिंह, अनुश्री, रुमालदा, तन्मय, श्रुति, डॉक्टर कृष्णा, आप में से किसी का भी कोई प्रश्न है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं। जी आरती सिंह।
आई हैव 2 क्वेरीज। फर्स्ट तो असाइनमेंट मैंने डाउनलोड किया था तो उसमें 30 मई तक आई हैव टू सबमिट दैट, तो वो उसका एक क्वेरी है कि कैसे करा जाए उसको। 30 मई इज द डेडलाइन। एंड सेकंड, जो ये काउंसलिंग शेड्यूल आया है हम लोगों के पास, मेल किया गया है, तो इसमें MDE 12 का जो है वन ऑफ द सेशन इज ऑन 3rd जून एंड MDE 414 का भी इट इज ऑन 3rd जून। तो ये 2 क्लैश हो रहे हैं, तो ये कैसे हो पाएगा?
Okay, so I will take the first question, and the second question I will leave to the Tejpal ji and his colleagues. I will address the first question, first query. Yes, there is a schedule for the submission of assignment, so you please ensure that you attempt. If you have not attempted it, then I will request the regional center to advise what to do. But I would like to, you have reminded me, or rather I am thankful that you put this question, because one very important aspect of the attempting the assignments I was forgetting is that the objective of the assignments is not just to give you an exercise. Please do give focus to my statement that it is not intended a simple exercise that you just write and then submit it. Please do understand, read the study material, and then understand and write your understanding on the assignment questionnaire as a response. It is very important that you read the study material or the material that pertains to the questionnaire or the respective questions, and then write what you understand from that and raise questions and give a rationale also. So basically it is to gauge the understanding of the content that is provided in the soft or in the print form, and then to know whether you are on the right track or there is still some more effort to be put in for better
So we
understanding.
have to submit the hard copies.
I think the instructions must be given on your assignments, but we will find out whether.
डॉक्टर साहब, ये ऑनलाइन विद्यार्थी इनको अपने सॉफ्टवेयर के थ्रू
So definitely, if you are online mode student, you have to submit it on the online mode, and there must be a link given to you to submit the assignments.
आरती, जो आपका एक पर्सन था जो लैप्स कर रहे हैं एक दिन में, तो हम जो 412 का जो कोर्स है इसका वो एक सेशन नहीं करेंगे जो 3-6 को है, क्योंकि 2 में से किसी एक को हमें करना पड़ेगा। तो डॉक्टर साहब इसके हम 412 के सिर्फ 5 सेशन ले लेंगे,
ठीक है।
ऐसे कर।
हाँ, सेशन नहीं,
हाँ उस दिन हम अपना छोड़ देंगे तो वो शर्मा जी ले लेंगे।
ठीक है, शर्मा जी कर लेंगे।
हाँ।
ठीक है, ठीक।
विद्यार्थी सभी जो विद्यार्थी सुन पा रहे हैं, उस दिन एक सेशन रहेगा आपका 412 का, उसमें हम कंडक्ट नहीं करेंगे, तो वो उस दिन 414 का रहेगा। ओके।
तेजपाल जी, आप एक सर्कुलर इन्फॉर्म कर दीजिएगा सभी को कि ये
हाँ
रिवीजन।
मैं इनको अपडेटेड भेज दूंगा सर। ठीक है सर, थैंक यू, कल मिलते हैं सर।
So I am sure whether there some information. I'm hopeful that some information must be there for the course MDE 411. So, but I would request our dear learners to come with a little bit of queries, and then it would be better if we put in queries and then discuss the queries in relation to the contents of the respective courses, respective blocks or respective units. So I think then it is more interacting, because if you put in questions, then we can discuss them, and maybe certain clarities can be provided. So any other students, any other learner who would like to express or ask or as a query? तेजपाल जी, मुझे लगता है कि शायद हमारे स्टूडेंट्स।
जी आदमी, ठीक है सर, जैसा बच्चे चाहते हैं ना, हम आज का फिर जो ये परामर्श स्तर है इसको समापन
आज का इंट्रोडक्टरी है। कल हम कोशिश करेंगे कि इसको पूरे 1:30 बजे तक, क्योंकि क्वेरीज भी होंगी और हम इसको थोड़ा सा, मैं चाहता हूँ कि हमारे जो डियर लर्नर्स हैं वो कुछ बैकग्राउंड तैयारी भी करके भी आएंगे, कुछ क्वेश्चंस होंगे तो हम उनको भी डिस्कस करेंगे।
जी जी।
तो कल हम ब्लॉक 2 पे बात करेंगे, MDE 411 के ब्लॉक 1 और ब्लॉक 2 पे हम डिटेल्ड चर्चा करेंगे।
जी सर।
I think that our learners will note that today we discussed only the titles, but tomorrow we will discuss the contents, and then we will have a discussion, and maybe your opinions will also matter, because in the MAD program there may be feedbacks from the learners. How do they look at it? How does it operate around their environment? And what should be added to the course material? And one thing I would like to add here, that whatever it is provided in the printing words is not just the dictate that you should only stick to that. So any supplementary, any relevant information that you have around you will also be very helpful and useful addition to the discussion, and at the same time it would also be very important if you could add that information, relevant information of course, to the questionnaires response in the assignments. So that will show that you are a conscious learner and you are updated, and because you are online mode students, so our other students also who may not be online mode, they can also bring in their experiences. So your experiences will enrich, your feedback will enrich the discussion and becomes more relevant, and that is the ultimate purpose of the discussion. And one very important issue that we focus today is the social credibility and the justice. So the social credibility and the justice will ultimately be delivered if our learners as uh, uh, as practitioner of the distance education bring in their experiences, and then they point out whether the content quite enough, or they need to be supplemented or complemented with additional information. तो मेरा मतलब ये था कि अगर वो हमारे जो लर्नर्स हैं वो अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस जोड़ेंगे, तो उससे हमारी जो चर्चा है वो अधिक सार्थक बनेगी, और जो चर्चा हमने अपने स्टडी मटेरियल में या जो इंफॉर्मेशन स्टडी मटेरियल में दी है उसको हम ज़्यादा सब्सटेंशियली प्रेजेंट कर पाने में समर्थ होंगे। तो मेरी आशा है कि हमारे जो लर्नर्स हैं वो अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस लाएंगे, और जो इन्फॉर्मेशन उनके पास किसी भी सोर्स में से है, ऑनलाइन सोर्स से है, ऑफलाइन सोर्स से है, बुक से है, डिस्कशन से है, मीडिया से है, सो वी विल बी हैप्पी टू entertain it and discuss in terms with the contents of the blocks or the units. Thank you.
डॉक्टर साहब एक काम कर सकते हैं हम, जिसको हम कैंसिल करने की सोच रहे थे, क्या उसका टाइम चेंज कर लें, 2 से 4 कर लें उसको?
कर सकते हैं, that will also be very nice.
हाँ, मैंने उसको 2 से 4 कर दिया सर।
ठीक है, वेलकम।
बच्चों को उस दिन 2 सेशन हो जाएंगे सर।
ठीक है, 2 से 4 करेंगे।
ठीक है, अपने वाला 2 से 4 कर लेंगे, उनका जैसे है वैसे
उनका शेड्यूल चलने दीजिए।
हाँ जी।
अब हमारा तय हो गया 2 से 4, तो हमारे जो लर्नर्स हैं वे भी इसका संज्ञान ले लेंगे, 2 से 4 करेंगे।
वो उस दिन 3 तारीख का है सर, ये सर 3 तारीख वाले को हम करेंगे सर।
ठीक है, और साथ में ये भी कर दीजिए आपकी कल परसों जब भी हम मिलेंगे तो हम सभी को रिमाइंड कराते चलेंगे कि 3 तारीख को हमारा जो एक सेशन है वो 2 से 4 को
4 है। ठीक है सर,
ठीक,
थैंक यू सर। मैं इनको अपडेटेड भी भेज दूंगा सर।
और मैं थोड़ा सा अपोलॉजिस है मेरी, क्योंकि शुरू में थोड़ा यहाँ नेटवर्क प्रॉब्लम था, तो शायद 5-7 मिनट व्यवधान रहा, उसके लिए मैं I feel sorry for it, and perhaps we will be more prepared from tomorrow onwards.
धन्यवाद। परिस्थितियां हो जाती हैं, ये तकनीकी समस्याएं कुछ अपनी जगह होती हैं। आपका आभार है कि आप जुड़े और आज हमारे को भी लाभान्वित किया। काफी अच्छा लगा इतने दिनों बाद आपके साथ ये सारा कार्यक्रम करके, मुझे भी।
मैं चाहता हूं कि हमारे जो लर्नर्स हैं वो खूब वाइब्रेंट हों और खूब सारे क्वेश्चन पूछें, तो हमारी जो डिस्कशन है दैट विल बी मोर ऑब्जेक्टिव।
हाँ, नहीं, मैं आशा करता हूँ जितने भी विद्यार्थी यहाँ पे हैं, आरती है, तन्मय है।
हाँ, अजीत सिंह जी हैज रेज्ड हिज हैंड।
हाँ, आरती कुछ बोलना चाह रहे हैं? आपने हैंड रेज किया।
Out of my experience, if I'm just switching on the screen, you can see I'm sitting along with my 3-month-old baby, and this is due to this distance education that I can pursue my passion of learning so many things.
No, this is a real complimenting.
Yeah, I'm a faculty with YMCA New Delhi as well. I'm teaching management over there.
Okay.
HRM, human resource management classes I'm taking. I'm on maternity leave right now.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
So this is what we meant by the social credibility.
Yeah.
And emerging learners and their concerns and their issues.
Yeah.
So I remember earlier in my stint as a counselor, we had learners coming from 90 to 100, 120 kilometers in a hill state. And then one of our counselors denied the entrance to the session. So the lady said, "Sir, you just imagine my position. I am bringing my child and father-in-law as attendant. And after traveling 120 kilometers, I am not allowed to enter into the counseling sessions." So these are the experiences, and if we cannot address these issues, we are not providing distance education or open and distance education. So it is provided only when we, allow.
And sir, I do have 9-year-old son also, and I did lot many courses from IGNOU. Meanwhile, I did DEC, PGD, HE, that is in higher education, and other courses as well from IGNOU. So I'm very grateful to IGNOU. Definitely.
No, actually, that is the object of the open and distance education. We should understand and appreciate the concerns. So our study material also provides such a.
Definitely. I must say the study materials are up to the mark, and it has updated ones. बहुत credible, बहुत ही worthful study materials है sir.
This has been recently updated, and about I think 2-3 years back it was offered after revision. So that is how you have courses like globalized learners, technology issues, and so forth. So these have been incorporated, and it is the effort of the university to provide contents which allows discussion on these issues. So thank you, Arti, so much of efforts you are putting in.
Thank you sir.
We would appreciate if other learners also come and then we discuss all these things, because that is what is the intention of the program. If we understand all these things, only then we become better distance practitioners after studying or completing the program. So Tejpal ji, so nice of you.
आपका आभार है सर, और ये मेरा सौभाग्य है कि भी हम दोबारा से इस स्थिति में बैठ के विज्ञान का
और क्षमा चाहता हूँ आपको मैं एंजाइटी में डालने के लिए।
अभिनंदन है सर सदैव आपका।
जी जी,
ठीक है, कल मिलते हैं जी सेम समय पर।
हाँ ठीक है,
धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू।